The middleweight division is quickly becoming one of the most exciting divisions in the UFC. It's giving the lightweights and bantamweight division a run for their money in terms of entertainment. It's kind of ironic because there was a time when the middleweight division was seen as one of the weakest divisions in the UFC. I mean, back then you had Israel Adesanya as a dominant champion, but many of the fighters in that division were one-dimensional, either lacking well-rounded skills or falling short in areas like striking or grappling. Now the division is stepping up in a big way. And I've been saying this for a while now. This weight class used to be incredibly weak. Sure, you had elite fighters like Izzy and Robert Whittaker, but besides that, the top 10 was pretty lackluster. I mean, just look at the lineup we had on top a few years ago, like Kelvin Gastelum, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa, Jared Cannonier, Derek Brunson, and Darren Till. That made up most of the division, and let's be real, Gastelum is sometimes a hit or miss. Vettori is average at best. Costa, he's overrated, and it's starting to show now. Cannonier is solid, and Till was 1-4 in his last 5 fights. And like I mentioned earlier, the middleweight division was also notably lacking in high-level grapplers. Most of the fighters in the division were primarily strikers, which created a fairly one-dimensional landscape. If you look back, there were very few with a strong grappling background. That's why I always felt like Izzy's dominant title reign was a bit overrated. Sure, he faced some fighters with decent grappling skills like Brunson, Gastelum, Whittaker, and Vettori, but their offensive wrestling wasn't all that impressive. Brunson might have been the best wrestler / grappler than all the fighters I just named, but he was sloppy and he was known as a gatekeeper. And Whittaker has great takedown defense, but his offensive wrestling isn't much to talk about. And the same can go for Gastelum and Vettori. They're just average in that department. And if you look back at the era before that, you would notice that the previous contenders were better with fighters like Luke Rockhold, Prime Chris Weidman, Gegard Mousasi, Jacare Souza, and Yoel Romero. I'd argue that middleweight division was way more stacked and competitive than the one we saw around the late 2010s. Those guys were incredibly well-rounded. They could grapple, control opponents on the ground, and submit people, and they can still stand and bang on the feet. Compare that to the late 2010s fighters, where the most of the division was full of strikers and you could see a clear difference. That's my biggest issue with that weight class for a long time. It lacked the balance. But now it feels like the division is finally starting to pick up again and regain some of the depth and excitement that it desperately needed. Now if you come to the present where we're at the weight class, now it's starting to thrive with new fighters and very well-rounded fighters. Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland, Imavov, Shemaev, Brendan Allen, Cajo Brahajo, and Anthony Hernandez. All of those fighters I just mentioned are very well-rounded. We're hitting a gold age in the middleweight division. I can't wait to see what happens. Personally, now I'm excited for a lot of these new matchups. Because I'm telling you, man, the middleweight division is going to be a blast to watch. We're in for some serious competitive fights, almost as stacked as lightweight, I would say. I wouldn't say it's quite on that level yet, but it's definitely getting there. We're going to see some amazing stylistic matchup with all these new killers coming up. It's gonna be so much fun, man. And looking ahead at potential matchups, Dricus versus Sean Strickland 2 is pretty much a lock. This is the one fight on the list that I'm just confident will happen. The rest are just possibilities or should happen. The first fight was an absolutely thriller, and I expect the rematch to deliver just as much. I still think Dricus will come out on top thanks to his sheer resistance, but it's going to be another close one. The only way to take down someone like Dricus is with power, and unfortunately, I think Sean's punches don't pack enough of that. Actually, we already have 2 fights booked already. My bad. But we have Hamzat versus Whittaker. That's coming up in a few months. And I'm pretty sure Hamzat's going to steamroll Robert Whittaker. I know that might be a hot take, but I think the key to beat Whittaker is pure power and aggressiveness. And Hamzat has that in his arsenal. Even if Hamzat can't out-grapple Whittaker, I still think he can overpower him on the feet and knock him out. We also have Imavov versus Allen happening in France, which is awesome. On top of that, I really believe Izzy should face Cajo Brahajo next since he's got the most momentum momentum right now. A fight between those two would be a huge fight overall. I just think this entire weight class is just thriving, and we've got some other rising contenders coming up like Michelle Pereira and Anthony Hernandez, so I honestly believe this is going to be the strongest middleweight division in UFC history. But yeah, guys, what do you guys think of this entire thing? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.